monitor. I'm sorry?
I just recorded it. That's all.
Okay.
We just don't want to lose it. Okay.
Do you want me to begin again?
No, we're good.
Okay, I'm gonna begin from the very beginning then. Let's see. Oh, we'll go. Okay, I'm gonna give you a brief report on the status of the water quality in the Florida Keys. With data from 20 years of monitoring. The sanctuary began to operate in 1990, and then it required a water quality protection plan and a water quality protection program, and also water quality monitoring program or project, which is the one that FIU has been working on since 1995. And starting that year, we began sampling these chemical species, nitrogen and phosphorus species, as well as carbon, silica, chlorophyll. And we measure salinity, dissolved oxygen, temperature, light, how much light gets into the water column, and also turbidity. With all that data, we were able to classify water types within the sanctuary, and then we produce this map that you have here, and those areas get water which are very similar, so it's easier than just working with individual stations. Those small dots are the individual stations that we have been monitoring. And then
Dr. I'm sorry to interrupt, but we're still all on the first slide. You either need to choose from beginning to make the slideshow go, but we're just still seeing your introductory slide.
Oh, okay, wait a minute.
Do you see in the upper left below the word file says from beginning? You can play it and then press your space or your mouse to make it go forward.
I'm trying to find a way to.
Do you see in the upper left-hand corner of your screen? There's a icon that says from beginning with a green.
Yeah.
I think just click it again. There you go.
Let's see if it works. Let's see, it moved now?
Now.
To the second one?
No.
No. Can you try double clicking on it?
Hey, I'm trying to, I did what I was supposed to do. Let's see again. I'm gonna go to slide.
From beginning, click on from beginning.
Can you see a change now or not?
No, it's not taking your input.
Okay, I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on, but can you see the second slide?
Oh, there it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go with this because I don't know what's going on with this.
Okay.
I tried, yeah, from the beginning, but it doesn't work. Okay, so what we had in this case was that we had, let's see. Can you see it now?
Can you press your F5 key?
Pretty sure what?
It says press your F5 key, like Frank number 5 on the top of your keyboard. Otherwise, we'll just keep going the way you're doing it.
Okay. How about now?
No,
Okay.
just back to the beginning.
Oh, back to the beginning, no change?
No.
Oh, God. I don't know what's going on. And I'm sorry for this. What I could do, just send you the presentation so you can put it on your screen. And you can begin, have your normal board meeting. In the meantime, I can send you the presentation so you can upload it.
I think if you just click on the slides as you go, that works.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so you can see this one now.
Yeah, the third slide, we see it.
Okay, so listen, so we have this monitoring parameters that we work on for all these years. And then that's the number of stations that we have had. You know, right now we only have 112 stations. The program has been, you know, squeezed because of budget cuts. And now you can see that what our waters in the Florida Keys, you know, are very complex because of the circulation patterns. So it's not very easy to define water quality in our system because we have all these currents moving around, and then there's some things that we cannot control for those. Okay, so like you know, this is the major circulation pattern in the Caribbean. Here's Cuba, here's the Gulf of Mexico. So we have this current. That thing moves about 100 times the water of all the rivers in the world, equivalent, you know, just 30 billion gallons per second. That's what it moves. So anyway, and that's something that we cannot control. So we'll have to put up with whatever the system brings us here. Things like sargassum, which come with all these currents, and it's not produced here. It's not produced in the Keys, but come to our shorelines. So those are things that we'll have to, you know, see how we protect our ecosystem, but there's not too much we can do. Also, we cannot do a lot with hurricanes. They come, and they really cause major damage and major disruptions in our water quality. And some of those changes are, you know, very fast. They could go back to previous conditions in a matter of a few months or a few years, but sometimes they are permanent. They go beyond possibilities of coming back. There is no return. And then we have some processes and some impacts that perhaps we can somehow control or we can manage them, like the input from the Everglades, the input from the Keys themselves, the input from the city of Miami. That water sometimes comes to Biscayne Bay and then circulates south to the Florida Keys. So it's not only in the Biscayne Bay, but also affecting the Florida Keys. Whatever happens, you know, the Keys, this area is not like Vegas, you know. Whatever happened here doesn't stay here; it goes everywhere, okay, and affect us. And so, whenever we have a hurricane like what we had last year with Ian, or Irma in 2017, all that water then moved, all that trash and debris and chemical compounds and you know, fertilizers, all kind of things move into the water, and then they move back south all the way down to the Florida Keys and our coral reef. So, you know, that's something that's very difficult to control. Okay, what are the long-term trends? I'm going to give you a summary of what happened in the last 28 years. Phosphorus has been increasing along the Keys themselves, the islands, you see, and that increase seems to be related to an increase also in chlorophyll. That means that the algae is growing for sure. It's growing much more because we have more phosphorus, more nutrient for them, and then we have that phosphorus come from the city themselves, and urban development. Nitrogen has been declining, as has been carbon has also been declining. A very similar pattern like the one we have with nitrogen, and that has to do with the contribution from the Everglades and Florida Bay. And then we have dissolved oxygen. Dissolved oxygen has been increasing almost everywhere, so that's a positive sign. You know, that's at least we have good news with that, with oxygen, and then both in surface waters and bottom waters. And then light, how much light reaches the bottom has been declining. In other words, the benthic communities, including corals, seagrass, etc., have less light to generate, whatever they need using photosynthesis, because there is less light hitting the bottom. And so that's problematic. And then finally, most of the problems, actually, let me put it this way. When we designed the initial monitoring program, the objective of that program was not to measure pollution coming from the keys. It was a general program to see the general conditions of the ecosystem, mostly on the coral reef. So that's why in 2011, we decided to install 10 new stations, at least what we could with the budget, to measure some impact from the keys themselves. So we have, along the, Isla Morada, Key Largo, Marathon, Big Pine, and Key West, we have some stations that we monitor also quarterly. And then you can see, using the data from these stations, I'm going to use only phosphorus and nitrogen here, because the very important nutrient for the biota in general, that phosphorus has been increasing, nitrogen has been increasing in Key Largo, in Isla Morada, in Marathon, in Big Pine, and Key West. So we have had increases of these nutrients region-wide. And I think we don't have enough stations. I think we have more to be a little more, robust, have a little more robust data set. So we have data from 2011 here, and we are beginning to see, to be able to design, to outline trends in the concentrations of these nutrients. All of this come from your cities, from your canals, from your gardens, from your golf courts, from fertilizers, you name it. So that's an urban contribution to water quality, to a bad one, in fact, to water quality. And that's what I have as a very brief summary of all this. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
I had one. You mentioned hurricanes cause major damage and disruption, and I imagine you're referring to it affects water quality. Is that the same thing? The water comes on shore and runs off into the nearshore waters, and that's how hurricanes cause damage and disruption that's permanent? Or is that just damage to the reef itself?
Yeah, what happened is that we have well, let's see which one was it slide that we were talking about. The problem with the hurricane. What happens sometimes is that the geomorphology changes. Sand is moved, some seagrass are destroyed, even coral reef are destroyed during hurricane. And so the conditions are not the same as they were before. And sometimes the system takes a very long time to recover, if ever. And there are cases, we can cite many cases around the world, where we have had some changes, and the system, the ecology of the area, have not been able to go back to previous conditions. And that's when you have this major shift. They are called system shifts, like those in, for example, Chesapeake Bay. They have problems with the nutrients coming from agriculture. They lost all their seagrasses. They try to control the input of nutrients, and they did, but they didn't get the seagrass back. They haven't after 30 years. So that's the kind of things that sometimes happen. We go beyond a threshold, and then sometimes the system cannot go back.
So what could we at Last Stand do? Okay, Roger, did you have a question? Sorry.
No worries. Yeah, I had one request. Great presentation, Doctor, and great information there. If you could provide a copy of that to someone with Last Stand, I would love to have a copy of
Sure,
that
I will.
presentation.
And I will
And then
send you
this,
the full report for last year. We have annual reports and we update the whole thing. And so I'm
Okay.
going to send you the last one, the 2022 report, and this presentation for sure. And I'm
that'd be
open.
good.
Whenever you need, you have some questions, just send me an email. I'll be glad to answer.
That'd be great. And then the follow-on question, I'm certain I know the answer, but were you aware that the city of Key West is starting a water quality monitoring program with the College of the Florida Keys? I don't know if you know Dr. Patrick Rice, who is
Yeah, I am in that project too. I am co-PI of that project. Unfortunately, it has taken too long, and there were some problems due to COVID, and then buying the equipment and things that has been delayed for a long time. And I think Dr. Rice sent me some information. I haven't received that report that I had to review or final presentation to EPA. But yeah, I am aware of that monitoring program around Key West. And actually,
okay.
that thing began when I wrote a very short report on the changes that occurred during the what we call the anthropause. So when everything calmed down during COVID, that we didn't have that many ships going down there, people were in their houses and all that, that actually causes some changes, significant changes in turbidity, like water were clearer, more fish were coming to your shorelines. So I wrote a report on that using our data. So, and that actually gave some people the kick that they needed to begin doing their own monitoring down there, which I think is very good.
Well, I just to give you a quick update, you're right. They've been talking about this program and initiating it for several years now, and it's just now starting to get off the ground. And as a matter of fact, this week at a Key West City Commission meeting, they're going to present their plan on this new water quality program that's a joint venture between the city and with the College of Florida Keys. But if you would make yourself available after this Thursday introduction of the plan, we might want to get your take and your input on the plan and how it might be able to be improved. That would be really, really useful if you'd be willing to do so.
Yeah, well, I don't have I don't have any information of what's going to be presented there.
Yeah, I will provide that to you after it gets presented on Thursday.
Even though I am copy of the project, I don't know what is going to be presented. Sometimes communications are very difficult. And so I like to see results too, and I know that Rice has had some problems with getting the equipment because of all this problem with the supply of electronics and things. And so things have been delayed for quite some time. And we have analyzed some samples that he has sent us to analyze here in our labs, and but we're still waiting for more samples. We need to do this more regular. I mean, this more permanently, doing the sampling and doing the whole things all the things that we were supposed to be doing to monitor water around Key West for sure.
Joyce, you
Thank
have
you.
a question?
Oh, sure.
Yes, Dr. Briseño, when you presented long-term trends with the various chemical components, nitrogen was down, carbon was down, but when we saw the 5 different graphs and the long-term trends, it looked like the trends were slowly heading up. So I'm curious about the discrepancy there.
was it only phosphorus on those area graphs?
That was the
Oh,
halo.
well,
zone.
yeah, what happened when we see the general maps like this one, let me go for photos here, for example. You see the red area right along, where the cities are, where the keys are. And that's where the stations that I was showing you, these stations here, that's where they are located, very close to shore. And that's where we have increases. So we have increases very close to shore, but in general, the areas, region-wise, are not changing that much. You see some changes right there on the islands, but along the rift track and Marquesas and the backcountry, there's not that much change. See what I mean? So the changes and the impacts are mostly kind of very close to shore.
You also mentioned that
I have two approaches. One for these regional, changes over 28 years, and these are only from 2011, very close to shore. But these ones are very important because those are the ones we can control somehow, because we are responsible of this.
That was my question is, do they consider, now you've got 12 years of data specifically about the halo zone? Is that considered statistically significant? Scientifically, you can say we see a clear trend versus
I can,
28 years.
I waited 10 years to begin plotting these diagrams and saying something about the halo. Because with 10 years, our data is statistically robust. But what happened is that there are two things that I have to make quite clear here. One, our sampling is quarterly. So we sample only 4 times a year. That's not enough. Also, we have only 10 stations for the whole Florida Keys. So, representativity of this is in question for sure.
So
but
who
we have, and I wish we had more. I wish we have, high frequency data, but we don't, and it's very expensive. That's why we're using other methodologies like remote sensing using satellites, or trying to make some links of water quality, nutrients with some other parameters that we can measure higher frequency in buoys, for example. And but that's work which is being doing right now. What happened is that monitoring, for most people it's not very sexy. It's not very exciting to go and do the damn thing over and over and over again, the same thing, go to the same place, take the same sample, take the same measure, and do the same analysis. And it's not sexy. And so they don't really consider monitoring is very important, and budgets are usually cut. They realize that monitoring is important when they have to make decisions, and they need the data, and they need robust data to have a good, take a good decision on, mostly for policymakers. And then that's when problems start.
Has the sanctuary ever considered beyond the 10 or more frequently than the quarterly? Is that, and maybe that's a question for Karen, if she's still on.
Yeah, if we do sampling more frequently, which be more better for sure. What happened is that there are some phenomena, like daily respiration, as an example of algae. That would depend upon daylight and change during the day and night. During the nighttime, there's only respiration. There is no production of chlorophyll, so there's not oxygen produced. So we don't know what happened at night because we are not collecting any data at night. We collect data during the daytime. So this is just an example of how we are somehow restricted, somehow away from taking a good view of the whole thing. We see just part of the phenomena, and then we assume a lot of things in order to come out with some kind of explanation for all this. But we are always kind of on shaky grounds, you see. And so what we need is more stations that we could be monitoring water quality permanently, like a station with a bunch of instruments which are measuring permanently water quality, some parameters of water quality, so we know temperature, salinity, dissolved oxygen, chlorophyll, etc. And then we get all that data relayed real time to our computers. So I can give you an answer of what's going on right now at that site.
So why is dissolved
done
oxygen? I'm sorry, why is dissolved oxygen improving? What do you contribute that to?
One of the things that systems, they respond very rapidly with dissolved oxygen. Like perhaps you remember when some canals were being kind of remediated a few years ago. The first thing we saw in those canals after whatever measure, backfilling or installing some air curtain, things like that, was that oxygen concentration increased. That's the way the system responded faster. It's a very dynamic parameter in water. And I think that there are some potential reasons. One is that we have been connecting your houses to the sewers, the whole network, despite some, for example, we haven't seen any change with phosphorus, and because phosphorus is positive changes, because it's very difficult, and that thing, when you had the septic tanks, all those waters coming out of the septic tanks, which go on the ground, move to the bedrock, phosphorus stays there. Okay, and some of it goes to the nearby canal on the shorelines, but some of the phosphorus stay on the rock, like precipitations of this compound. And then they stay there for a long time. When you have had septic tank for 50 years, well, imagine the amount of phosphorus which has been fixed in the ground. And that's now, even after you cut down the use of septic tanks, all that gunk that was deposited there along 50 years is now being leached out. So you still have some phosphorus coming out to the waters. That's why you don't see major changes in phosphorus after remediation, but you do see changes in oxygen. Okay.
Okay, so I guess we've gone a little over our time amount for this, but that is an excellent presentation. Karen, you were going to add some information, like what could we do? Is it the sanctuary that funds these things? And if there's a need for more funding or more stations or more frequent testing, is that something the sanctuary funds?
Good questions. Hopefully all can hear me. And sorry, my video doesn't seem to be working today, even when I try to turn it on. Okay. So the sanctuary, we actually collaborate on all of these water quality type efforts through the water quality protection program that Henry mentioned at the very beginning of his presentation. That program was established as part of the legislation that created the sanctuary and is co-chaired by EPA and DEP in consultation with Florida Keys National Marine Sanctuary. But basically, that is an interagency body that works together to provide recommendations on a suite of things that the water quality protection program does. So from corrective action, so things like this sewering the Keys, that was something that the water quality protection program was really involved in. There's an education and outreach piece, but they also steer the monitoring and research activities. And EPA is the funding agency for the vast majority of the monitoring and the research that goes on in the sanctuary related to water quality. And that being said, I think that an opportunity for this group to get more involved would be to actually participate or attend at least water quality protection program meetings when those happen. We try to be really responsive to concerns from the community in either designing specialized targeted studies to understand a water quality issue, or certainly we'd welcome recommendations and requests. It's good for EPA and DEP and the rest of our partners on the steering committee to hear from the community about things that you want to see. So additional nearshore water quality monitoring could certainly be one of those things. I know we're over, so I wanted to mention two last things. One, we have it on our to-do list, which is pretty ambitious, and we have very little capacity currently to actually run this program. But one of the things on our to-do list is to actually take a look at the design of the water quality monitoring programs we have in the sanctuary, this one being a primary component of that, and say, hey, are we measuring the right things where we need to measure them and at the right frequency? Are we able to answer the management questions we have today based on this program? And if not, how could we explore improving upon that? And that might include, and probably will include in the recommendation, more nearshore sites. So that's something that we have had on the docket for a while and just have not had a chance to really dive into. But hearing from others in the community about your interest in that and the importance of this nearshore component, I think could help. And then second thing I want to mention, and I can follow up with some additional information, but DEP and FIU recently collaborated to install 4 new telemetered water quality monitoring stations at the reef. So what that means is that these are collecting data, I think every 15 minutes, and sending them back, providing real-time data at Molasses, Sand Key, Sombrero, and Fowey Rocks on parameters. Let me see if I can remember them: temperature, salinity, dissolved oxygen, and a number of other things. So it's not perfect. It's certainly not solving the problem of not having this more high resolution, high frequency data, but I think it's going to be a helpful piece to this puzzle to better understand, some of these patterns over time that we can't capture with the quarterly monitoring. So the data, they're working on a portal, FIU is working on a portal to have that information available, but I can send you the public site where you can go and check out what those data show anytime as a follow-up to this call.
Oh, thank you. So Don, you have?
Yeah, can I say something here?
Yes.
If you can hear me okay?
Yes.
I think as everybody probably knows, we took water samples of our own, 9 of them from Bow Channel, mostly Bow Channel, Cudjoe Gardens, and a couple from Niles Channel to send FIU to get sucralose readings on them. We're still waiting to get those back. But also took a sample from Cudjoe Gardens, and we sent it to a lab in South Carolina through Brian LaPointe to see what species of algae was blooming there, and we got those results back. We have a species that kind of surprised us, but anyhow, I just don't. I mean, it's pretty obvious something's going on out there, and it seemed to be centered in Bow Channel. On either side of Bow Channel, Niles Channel, and the other one south of that, water wasn't quite as bad. It was green, it was bad, but Bow Channel was actually a brownish color. And of course, Cudjoe Gardens, it was horrible. People were getting sick. There was swimming in the canals. You could smell it when you pulled up. When we pulled up to get water samples in my truck, you could actually smell it. But as we were getting samples out there, we got a phone call from the Aqueduct Authority from Jay Miller. And as we're in the canal, smelling the water and seeing how bad it is, there's actually foam on the surface in some places. We were told there's no pollution problem. Now, what does he define pollution as? And also, if you look at go back to the article from the Tim O'Hara wrote on the brown water or the green water, Greg Velez, the head of the FKA, is quoted as saying there's been no reported sewer line breaks or impacts to the Cudjoe Regional Wastewater Treatment System and the Lower Keys. We're not experiencing anything out of the ordinary. Velez said everything is normal. Now, really, Okay, then there's an incident report. You probably, hopefully you all have seen that, where there was not actually a break on Big Pine. The sewer lines were never connected for something like a year. They're reporting 72,399 gallons of raw sewage was spewed out into the ground. This is the contractor's fault. They never actually even connected the pipes. So how many more are out there like that? I don't know. But it's difficult to really tell what's going on. And I want to disagree with Karen a little bit on this. People are not really working together. If the Aqueduct Authority is telling you one thing, and we got incident reports telling you something else, people are not working together on this thing. So it's a bit troubling to me, but we'll get our own results back. I hope it shows that the sucralose is really low and that it's not a sewage problem, but you know, I don't know. We'll wait and we'll see. So that's where we're at now.
What was the surprising species of algae and why was it surprising?
It's still really preliminary, and that's not something that Last Stand paid for. I was sent the prepaid shipping label by a lab in South Carolina, and they didn't get it to me in time, so the samples that I took set overnight. And I talked with Brian Lapointe. I said, you know, they set overnight and they really smell, Brian. Should I send these out or go get new ones? He said, "Oh, go get new ones if you can." So I got them that morning and sent them out that afternoon. But when I got the new out samples and I unscrewed the lid, you know, after I got back to the house and smelled it, they smelled the same. And the water when I was sampling actually smelled. So something was really going on there. And the sample, I'd feel more comfortable if somebody would talk with Brian and get the results, the species of the sample from him and why it was so odd, rather than, you know, than me saying, because I'm not in on the chemistry like Brian is, and that might be a better way to do it. And I would definitely hold off going to the press with anything until we get the sucralose samples back and talk with Brian, let him talk to Tim O'Hare or somebody and about the species of algae and why it was so odd. So
Well, you can send your samples. You have to send them too far away. You know, there is somebody in Key Largo, Dr. Tom Frankovich, that he can analyze those samples. He has offered many times to analyze them, and he can do that overnight in some cases, you know. So I can send you the email of Dr. Frankovich. So next time you have these kind of issues, you can send samples to him, and he will be glad to analyze them for you. And yeah, there are problems that sometimes they are local problems, you know, like a speed or something like that. That is not, you know, region-wide, but just localized in some areas. And that's the kind of things that have to be cured somehow. Try to avoid these spills like that. Also, I remember all the problems we have had with injection wells and all that.
yes,
And I mean, there are many injection wells in the Keys that they are too shallow. I'm really sorry that they are too shallow, and that there is a communication between the aquifer at that depth and surface. I remember what happened in Cudjoe Key, because I was the one who got all the fire to that. I did the analysis, I did the study to demonstrate that there was a connection between the injection depth, which was 120 feet, and surface. And then the aqueduct didn't believe me. So they contracted a company, and the company made a bunch of holes and did some studies, and their conclusion was that there was not any problem. And then when you read the report, and I can remember figure number 5 shows exactly the evidence that there was a connection. And then they didn't even mention that. They had to go to court, and I was in court, and I asked, the attorney from them asked me how much I have learned from that report. Said, you know, I really learned a lot. I'm really glad that that report was put out, because figure number 5, when you show that all the wells and the buoy, which is measuring tidal variability, all of them matches in frequency and amplitude. The only way that can happen is if they are connected. Well, that's when the whole thing finished. They reached an agreement with the people from Coyhaique, and that was, the end of it. But that's what happened sometimes. And some people don't want to accept what's going on. Like, people don't want to accept that sea level is rising. Some people don't want to accept that the whole damn world is warming up. And human nature, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to prolong this because I know we are running over, but have you been hearing of specific issues happening in the Summerlin Cudjoe region this summer where the water is particularly unusual for this region?
No, I used to receive some data, some results in the past. I know that some colleagues here, Dr. Piero Gardinali, he's analyzing sample for sucralose. Sucralose is an indicator of human impact, and I was the one who began developing that thing here in South Florida, in Biscayne Bay, and also in the Florida Keys. And Biscayne Bay, I had problem with the mayor because I showed that there was some significant impact from their pumps, and yeah, keep on using sucralose, because that's a good indicator of whenever you have an input from humans on water quality.
I'll throw out there that I've heard scattered reports and have been reaching out to FWC and DEP to see if they're have also heard of that, because remember, DEP is our state's lead agency for water quality, especially if it's a regulatory thing. Haven't heard of any associated fish kill, so I don't believe FWC has done any sampling. And I know DEP was planning to go out and sample, but that was the day that Idalia was kind of scooting by Key West, so that got stymied. So I'll reach back out and see if they've been able to reschedule that to grab some additional samples. In the meantime, I would be interested if you guys get any results from what you have sampled and you don't mind sharing them. I'd love to see it. And if this is something that warrants some additional conversation and potential exploration of funding to do a more comprehensive investigation about what's going on here, that's definitely something that we could talk about bringing before the Water Quality Protection Program. So anything you could share, I'd love it.
And did we cut you off from going through a couple things that you were going to mention about how we could be more involved? There's probably more specifics we could talk about, but I think the take-home message is participating in those water quality protection program meetings. I heard loud and clear the disagreement about people working together, and I will tell you, it is really hard to coordinate amongst all of these various agencies who have their own directives and small slices of the pie that all collectively matter for water quality. But I still really think that having this forum in our water quality protection program to get those people together and actually dig into these things is a really valuable tool. It's not perfect, but it's helpful. And as I mentioned, we absolutely welcome and actually encourage public participation in that. So, folks like you who keep people honest and aren't afraid to ask those tough questions, I think is a really valuable piece. So please get involved, and I'd be happy to share. I'll try to make sure through Dottie, I guess I have your contact information. I'll share information whenever any of those meetings are taking place. We're going to have one before the end of the year, so that might be a great opportunity to talk about this one.
Andrea had a question about.
I'd be glad to take a look on whatever data you have, when you do your analysis from whatever lab. If you want to send me the reports, I'll take a look and give you my opinion too.
You hear that, Don?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay, can I say one more thing here, jump in?
Sure.
we sent those samples to South Carolina because it was of no charge. They paid for the shipping and the analysis and all that. That's basically
Oh, well, that's
the
good.
reason we sent it up there. So if there's someone closer by that can do it, you know, it's always a funding thing with this too. But one thing we could use some help on, we're trying to get information to Sunshine Key, the campground there, Ohio Key, whether they're on their own injection well system, which would probably be shallow well, or they're hooked up to the main sewer lines that would go to Cudjoe. We've asked for the records, we can't seem to get those. I took samples across the street. There's a small, for lack of a better word, a pond on the south side. It really smells bad. And I can't say that it's sewage, it smells like sewage, could be sargassum, but I took some water samples there. They're in my freezer. We don't know what's going on there. That would be a lot of sewage going into the ground if they're on the shallow well there. If somebody could find out that information for us, that would be great.
Something regarding the smell of water. That does really smell very bad, you know, like rotten eggs. That's hydrogen sulfide.
Right.
And it's just generated when you have a reducing environment, when you don't have enough oxygen in the water. It's not necessarily that you have a sewer contribution to the site. You can have low oxygen in a water body without having sewer going there, okay? So do not take only the smell of the water. And actually, it's interesting because, you know, it's good because it's a good indicator. Right away, it will give you a kick in the smell, so it will let you know that something's wrong there. But you have to measure some other things in order to assess if you really have, you know, sewer or something else.
Right. Yeah, I don't want to jump to conclusions about Sunshine Key, but it smells bad, and we took samples. If it comes up really high in sucralose, well, then it might be something that should be looked at.
Yeah.
I have some contacts. Let me see if I can figure out the situation over there and get back to you all.
Oh, thank you. Andrea asked about the cost. How much cost are you talking involved with installing more near shore sites? Do we know is there a figure on that?
I'd ask Henry since he's the one who gets the funding from EPA.
How much is what?
Cost for their Halo Zone site or more?
Yeah.
The whole monitoring program per year is $500,000. And that
500,000, did you say?
Yeah, $5,100 a year.
Wait, 500 or 5,000?
500,000. And what happened is that it has been that for several years, and actually is in deficit right now, and we have to change that a little more. And that's what I was telling you. It sounds expensive, but when you think that you are sampling, you know, 112 stations along all that area, right, and collecting a lot of data besides just the samples, and then analyzing for, you know, then at the end you have about 25 different species. So at the end, it's a very economic, very cheap program as compared to what you could have to pay a company to do the same kind of work. Universities, research centers usually get a little amount of money for doing a heck of a lot of work. And but that's
okay. All right. So I think we've Joyce.
Yeah, quick question to Dr. Briseno. So would your recommendation be that we ask to double the number of Halo sampling sites?
I cannot tell you that doubling is the right number. I should have to just sit down and think for a while and then go over the maps and the data and some statistics, and then I can tell you how many sites should be necessary. But for sure, it should be increased for sure. And one thing that I am doing for that right now is, if not collecting samples of those sites, I bought an instrument which I can put in a boat, and that instrument will pump water, you know, and pump it on board and analyze it right away. So it's a flow-through system, it can go very fast. You can go, in a boat at 15, 20 knots. And so you can go around the Keys with that on your boat, and then you can get the data on water quality on those areas for sure. It's not the whole thing, it's not nutrient, but there are some other parameters that you can measure. You have an idea of water quality. And that's what I'm going to be doing, starting this next sampling at the end of this year, besides what I'm doing now.
Well, that's nice because it's not a fixed site. You can move around with that.
Yeah, and then you can have a map,
Yeah.
of the area, not just one site, but you see geographic distribution of water quality, which is important. Perhaps will be good in order to give you some information on the potential existence of hotspots,
Yeah.
areas which are with more problems than others, or changes with time, that kind of things. And that for sure will take a little more money from the project I am working on right now. But EPA has been, you have to thank EPA. You have to thank NOAA for all the work that these people do for the Keys. For years, individuals and the institutions as such, they really do a heck of a lot of work, and they do as much as they can with money. At least in my case, they have been funding this project for 28 years, NOAA and mostly EPA nowadays. And NOAA, it covers part of it, but the sampling is covered by EPA. So it's important to let them know that you recognize their work.
Well, thank you. I thank you very much, Dr. Briseno. That was quite a lot of information. It was very enlightening as well. And thank you for your offer to help us with some of our questions as we move forward and make decisions about what we want to do as a board. So
I'll send you some information and the link to Dr. Frankovich. So if you need some data or some information on help with the algae.
okay.
Great, very
Right.
very
I gotta go. I have
thank
another
you.
meeting. Thank you very much.
And thank you,
Thank
Karen,
you.
for joining us as well.
Yeah.
You
My
guys have
pleasure.
okay.
Take
Thank you.
care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Somebody needs to take the screen down, or
Think when,
who does the screen, Mary, do you know?
I imagine it'll go away when Dr. Bristino logs off.
Oh,
if
okay,
he-
okay.
Well,
If
Mary
he
can
exits the
probably
meeting.
overcontrol.
Okay, well, that was very good. I hope everybody got, thank you, Don, for being able to join us and keep us up to date on that water quality
thank you.
testing you're doing. So, all right, so, business. We have a quorum, so that's good. Anne, right? You agree with that?
Yes, we do.
Do we have any changes to the agenda? No?
I have quick updates, but we can get to them when we get to them.
Okay. We have the August meetings that Joyce sent out, very well written, very detailed about what we went to that long meeting last time over all the committees. Do we have a motion to accept that?
Motion for approval from Roger.
Seconded.
Second, okay, any objections? No? Okay, the minutes are approved. Roger, you're here. I didn't know if you were going to join, so you have the treasurer's report?
Yeah, I set out a report, I think I mentioned to you in the last couple weeks, with the financials through our third quarter, our third fiscal quarter ended June 30, along with the recent $20,000 award that we received for our new permanent endowment account. And so I'd be glad to entertain any questions on that, and I will have some updated financials coming out in the near coming weeks. But I also wanted to solicit input from anybody and everybody on our fiscal 2024 budget for the period beginning October 1 of 2023 through September 30 of 2024. And I'm hoping that the executive committee will be meeting beginning next week to try to hash out a first draft of that fiscal 24 budget, but certainly any of the other board members that have any input or questions or concerns or items that they want to make sure that we have funding provided in the draft of the budget, if you could forward that on to myself or Ann or anybody on the executive committee, and then the executive committee will meet and kind of come up with a first draft budget next week, hopefully to position ourselves to get a budget discussed and approved at our October board meeting. So that's just a real quick summary of what's going on with the treasurer, and I'll be glad to answer any questions as well. And I did at some point, I don't know where on the agenda, Dottie, I want to talk about this new program that I just sent out something in the last several days on it. I don't know if now is the right time or we should wait
Oh,
till later.
we have it down here under updates, the
Okay,
Dean
great.
Stearns legacy. Okay, yeah,
Okay, I'm done.
okay. All right, thank you, Roger. So we're not approving a report this month. You're coming out with a budget. Is that it?
Yeah, that's correct. The financials were sent. We really don't have to approve financials, but
Oh,
the
okay,
most
all
recent,
right, okay,
the most recent financials through June 30 were sent out like within the last several weeks.
okay, yeah, thank you. All right, so we have online votes that we all agreed to online, the DEO letter on hurricane evacuation model that we didn't get any response on, right? No, Mary, you never got a
Heard
response. Okay.
Mm-mm.
The Community Foundation Peter McDougal match program application, which we all approved, went out. And the approval and I guess got approved, right? Is that the
They
20,000?
got approved, and we got $20,000.
That's right. And the approval to cover the cost of $300 for the FIU water testing for superlists that we heard is not back yet. So that's great. Committee reports. So I think goals and
Can I
issues.
just put a quick comment? I already forwarded this information to Roger, but it may in fact be a smidge higher than that, just because of some of the costs and the FedExing that, again, this was an initial estimate. I don't think it's going to be wildly different from that, but I did want to let people know.
Do we need to make another vote about approving the increase, or are we good with it?
Well, let me ask you a question, Ann. I've already reimbursed the shipping cost, and I guess there was a cost from the lab that was going to be sent directly to folks. Is there an invoice that I can see related to that?
Not yet, not as far as I've heard.
Okay, okay.
My
So
notes
stay tuned.
indicate, excuse me, go ahead.
That's it.
My
Go, Jo.
notes indicated that the motion was to approve $200 to $300 for that particular
Effort.
action.
Yeah.
So we probably need a motion for something beyond that.
And I honestly don't know what it is. Don signed off. He was the one who was coming up with some of these charges, and he gave me an initial ballpark, which is what I sent around, and I haven't heard anything since. So I don't know what to say.
I would suggest that we sit tight, and when the bills come in and they are presented for payment, if it goes over 300, I'll come back to the board with an additional approval.
Great.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so committee reports. Joyce, you have goals and issues?
Yeah, and I have to confess I'm having trouble adjusting to the new format, so bear with me. The committee report that we sent out contained 4 recommendations. The first, I'd like Dottie to elaborate on. Bay Drive Pocket Park in Tavernier, Key Largo. And
Okay.
Dottie, your letter went out, but if you can give us a thumbnail, please.
Okay, so yeah, I didn't send it out yet. So we were looking for approval from the board, but I wrote the letter and shared it with the board. Joyce helped me with the editing, and basically that's in our comp plan and in the livable communities, we have very clear language that says that we don't give away waterfront access. And there's this effort by this neighborhood to take over this park. This pocket park was a problem during COVID, definitely. Neighborhood was overwhelmed with people all over everywhere. And since then, the county hired a Park and Recs director, and they've taken action to address the management of that park, and it's been in much better shape. And I believe they've managed it very well now. but the neighborhood got the impression that they were going to be able to take it over and make it a HOA park. And there's been some pushback from other members of the community that use the park that don't want to be denied access to it because it would become just a private neighborhood park. So their attorney, the neighborhood's attorney, recommended that the county allow it to be. So they had some scheme to get around the comp plan. They were going to replat it or something. I didn't quite understand why that would make a difference, but have it replatted. But they needed 100% approval from the neighborhood, which they didn't get. So we're writing this letter asking them to come up with a solution where everybody can be happy. And actually on the county agenda, there is a recommendation to lease a section of the property for access for the neighborhood and leave the rest of it available to the community park. So it's sort of a compromise. And I think it's a good compromise. Everybody gets what they want. Maybe. We'll see how it goes. But I would like approval to send the letter as written because it doesn't really tell the county how to manage the issue, but rather that they should manage it within the rules of our comp plan. Yes, Roger?
So on the public access issue, Di, is your impression of the agenda item, and I read your description of the agenda item, it almost implies that instead of changing the ordinance or the law, they're just looking for a one-time kind of assigning that property to the association. Is that the workaround?
No. The workaround is they're going to take a lease, just a section of that pocket park, so that it can be open to the neighborhood 24 hours or ever how they want to. But it's just they take let's say I forget what the size of the lot is. Let's say it's 80 by 100.
It's like 10 feet by 200 feet is what the density.
Right, they're just going to take an access route. It's really like an easement. They're going to give them an easement and lease it to them.
And that's just a part of the public access to the water, is that right? Or is that the entire public?
The parcel itself is larger than 20 by 11, and they're just going to lease them a 20 by 11, let them put their own fence, their own gate, their own rules, and they can walk down to the park, walk down to the waterfront access. I don't know if they're going to like that, but their argument has been the park is closed Tuesday through Thursday, so and they can't use it on the weekends because it's closed. That's how they manage the crowd. They closed it off during the weekends, and there's no parking, and which is a problem for the cops. The cops aren't happy with that arrangement. But anyway, it's giving them a lease that they can take and use to walk down to the waterway, and they can have access whenever they want. And the rest of the park will be managed the way it is managed now.
So basically, it's given special rights to the neighborhood association on only a piece of the public property. Yet the county rules on the rest of the public property for the general public prevent any access.
Oh no, only limited access. No, you can go visit the park Tuesday through Thursday.
Yeah, so no weekend access to the public.
No weekend. Well, they might change that, but now that's what it is because that's solved the problem.
Dottie, do you
Yes.
have any concern that this proposed workaround would in any way establish a negative precedent for the future?
I don't know. I can't say. I mean, the county has leased waterfront access before. Mandalay had a bar that kind of encroached in the right-of-way access, and they leased it to them for a price, and so they could keep it, and it made excluded the public for that area that they leased without giving them the whole parcel, just a section of it.
If this workaround were to sunset, if there were to be a trial period to see if it would work, I'd be happier with it, to give them this lease in perpetuity.
Well, be honest with Joyce, that's not on this letter. That is on the agenda, but it's not on this letter. So if we're just going to approve the letter basically is just saying we would like you not to give away the land.
Agreed.
Because
So-
it would so that's what this letter is about. And the agenda item came out. I wasn't expecting that, but I just saw it yesterday. Which is a little bit more palatable for me because it doesn't give the land away 100%. It's an odd compromise, but it is a compromise.
So do we have a motion to approve the the good letter that Dottie wrote?
I so move.
Thank you. You need a second?
Second.
Okay. All right, any objections? All right, so we'll send the letter. So Mary, you have it, right? And you'll send it out? Okay, thank you.
The next recommendation to the board from Goals and Issues is regarding Little Palm Dolphin Resort on Little Torch Key. And we were first in a panic thinking that this would be heard, this bad project would be heard before the Planning Commission in September. But I heard informally, and then Ilse confirmed this morning that the item is tentatively scheduled for the October meeting. And I'm taking the word tentatively to mean that, well, it might be September. I mean, it might be November rather than October. Denise, do you have any insight on that?
No, if you want, I can try and see, but they sometimes switch it at the last minute. You
So you
know,
don't need a recommendation anymore, Joyce, is that it for this
Well,
meeting?
It'll be an online vote because I was tasked with doing the letter since it was my idea, and
The letter's not
pressure
ready
came
yet.
off. But
Yeah.
I think we probably need to get a letter in if they do a late switcheroo and put it on the September.
I'll call the county, Joyce, and see if I can get a feel for when that might go.
Okay, so moving on to,
Could I just give Mary a heads up? I don't know. I can't recall if I copied you in the loop on this, but I got this call on my cell phone from Tim O'Hara saying this person associated with Little Palm, I suggested she reach out to you all since you're involved in local quality of life issues. Now, I haven't heard back from her. I did reach out to Goals Committee and Joyce to see, has anyone else been in touch with this woman? And I'm looking for her name.
Julie Marzella.
Yes.
She and her husband Jay used to own Palmer's Resort, also on Little Torch, but on the north side of the island.
Have you spoken with her, Joyce?
No, but Alicia Putney has been in contact with Julie, and let me think. There are three key people. The gentleman is Parks Banks, used to be a realtor, still is, but these people are not associated with Little Palm Dolphin Resort. They are neighborhood representatives for the Jolly Roger subdivision that is immediately south adjoining this proposed mega development.
And they're all on our side as far as fighting the approval. Is that correct?
That is correct. And Alicia put them in touch with Richard Grosso on a conference call, very informal, pro bono. And I have not heard that they have hired anyone yet.
Well,
But
I would just suggest, if it's appropriate, that before we fire, and I guess we don't know the timing of this meeting and when the deadline for issuing this letter is, but I think it would be appropriate for us to actually have a firsthand conversation with these neighbors that are against it to make sure our letter does not include, doesn't exclude things that we ought to be included, that we're all kind of working on the same page and off the same sheet of music, if that makes sense in the opposition.
well, I've been on this issue through the Key Deer Protection Alliance since March, and
Okay.
the issues have not changed. Violations of the comp plan, violations of the livable communities plan, violating community character, not minimizing adverse effects, not serving local residents. It's a 38 unit, 3-story over parking hotel with another 4,500 square foot building in the back that would house 8 employees, probably have, kitchen and laundry and all of that stuff. But one of the big things is here's north-south Pirates Road that dead ends at US 1, and there are 200 homes in Jolly Roger, all of which use Pirates Road to go any place, east or west, and they already have traffic congestion. And there's absolutely no proposed mitigation. They're talking about, actually, the number of trips a day was something like 56 from the neighbors. Just from the new development would be 218. So, bad place, but I'm not for repetition. Are we still recording, by the way?
Yes.
Okay, then I won't open my big fat mouth.
But just
Anyway,
FYI, they did report that they did a 200-person petition and 190 of those were against this development. So they do have the neighborhood support. So maybe if there's something we do, we try to incorporate that idea of Rogers, or just reach out and say, here's what we're doing, just so we
And
are.
perhaps even
lockstep.
mentioning that petition in our letter would be a positive, for example, of making it more powerful.
That's what I was thinking too.
It's
Power in numbers.
Inexplicable why the DRC said, oh yeah, go ahead, this is a good project, when it has so many, negative violations. Okay, so that will be an online after you see the letter, folks. The next recommendation from Goals and Issues is that when we're talking about affordable housing in public statements, that we include workforce in both written and oral statements. So it says affordable workforce housing.
Good.
Andrea,
Yep.
is that a motion?
You want to move a motion to start saying that specific phrase? Yes.
On a second?
Second.
Objections?
None. No objection.
Okay, the final recommendation to the board, aside from reviewing some things and monitoring several issues for the board, Sam Kaufman sent a letter to us when we sent out the e-blast about the judicial districts consolidation. Is there someone on the board who feels? Speak up, man.
I just want to, if we want to send another letter, I just felt like time was marching forward on not replying to him. So I simply sent a letter saying, thank you for your comments. You're always welcome to come to one of our board meetings and present, your ideas, your issues, because he mentioned a whole bunch of other things, educate us, do so. But by the way, the information that we shared in that e-blast came directly from the BOCC Facebook page. So that's where it came from, because it sounded like he thought we were making some of this stuff up. So we can certainly send more. I just did want to get something, a timely response off to him, at least saying,